I never imagined my journey would begin with a struggle as a Brazilian dreamer. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sky was an ominous gray, matching the heaviness in my heart. I stood at the edge of my dreams, feeling them slip away like sand through my trembling fingers. My family relied on me. My mother, with her tired eyes and gentle hands, had poured her life into my education. My brother always cheering me on. I felt their hopes wrap around me like a warm blanket, but that warmth couldn't chase away the chill of uncertainty as I walked through the streets of São Paulo. The vibrant chaos buzzed all around me, vendors shouting, cars honking, people rushing. But all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. I wanted something more. I needed to break free from the chains of poverty, from a life already scripted. Yet, every moment felt like an uphill battle. Hopes became tangible yet elusive, like the faint scent of coffee wafting through the air, teasing me with its comfort. That I remembered the day I met him. Lucas. He had an infectious laugh that could slice through the darkest of clouds. He was my anchor, my partner in this difficult journey. We'd escape together, find our pieces in the chaotic puzzle of life. But just when I thought we'd chase away the shadows, life threw us a curveball. A twist I never saw coming. A shattering phone call filled with panic. Your mother's been in an accident. The words stuck in my throat like glass. I could hear the oxygen leave the room, the air thickening with dread. Tears streamed down my face as panic clawed at my chest. The familiar streets felt foreign, a maze leading me further into despair. How could I support my family now? I was lost, paralyzed by fear and love. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The laughter faded. Every promise I made to Lucas felt heavy, burdened by every second. I stood at a precipice, with the weight of my dreams crashing down like a wave, threatening to drown me. The spark of hope that once flared inside me began to flicker. What happens when all the dreams you've built on hope crumble in the blink of an eye? Do you fight? Do you curl up in despair? Do you run? The questions echoed louder than the sirens that raced through the streets. I felt trapped in a cyclone, my heart racing as life spiraled out of control. Just when I thought there was no way forward, a flicker of light caught my eye. A mysterious figure across the street, watching me with piercing eyes. Who were they? Why did they seem so familiar? A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to look away but was drawn in, compelled by an inexplicable force. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air was thick with uncertainty as I stood there, transfixed by the figure across the street. Their gaze felt as intense as a spotlight, illuminating the shadows of my despair. I squinted, trying to discern who they were. A flicker of recognition danced at the edges of my consciousness, but my thoughts were tangled in knots of fear and memories. Without thinking, I took a hesitant step forward, drawn to the mystery unfolding before me. Each stride felt heavy, but there was something in their eyes that compelled me to bridge the distance. When I reached the curb, the figure stepped closer as well, revealing a face I hadn't seen in years. A face etched with time and hardship, yet also radiating an unexpected warmth. It was Clara, my childhood friend, whom I had lost touch with after she moved to another part of the city. Mariana, she said, barely above a whisper, as if the name itself could shatter the fragile moment. I nodded, unable to find the words. My heart raced. Clara had once been my confidant, a beacon of joy in the chaotic world of our youth. Yet, the laughter that once bonded us now lay fractured beneath the weight of our separate lives. I could see the imprint of her own struggles in her eyes, mirroring my own. I heard about your mother, she continued, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine what you're going through. Her compassion came like a warm wind on a cold day, stirring something deep within me. The cocoon of despair I had wrapped around myself began to loosen, just a little. I felt a surge of gratitude for her presence, and the vulnerability that followed was overwhelming. Tears threatened to spill, and I fought against them. "Thank you," I finally managed, my words coming as a whisper. "I don't know what to do. Everything feels overwhelming." She completed my sentence, understanding shining in her gaze. "I know. It's okay to feel lost." Her words ignited something within, a fragile hope that perhaps I could lean on someone, even just for a moment. As we stood there, catching up on the years lost, Clara shared her own journey, revealing her own struggles with family and dreams. It was a small catalyst of kindness in the storm of uncertainty that weighed me down. Just when I thought I might draw strength from this unexpected reunion, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, shattering the serenity of our conversation. My heart sank as I read the message. "Your mother woke up, but her condition is critical. You need to come to the hospital." The world spun again. The moment's warmth evaporated like mist in the sun, replaced with a gnawing dread. I felt Clara's hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "Go, Mariana. Don't let this pull you under." As I rushed toward the hospital, my thoughts raced faster than my legs could carry me. What did critical mean? Would I still have a mother to confide in after this? The halls of the hospital were sterile and suffocating. Silence hung in the air like an invisible force. With each step, I battled my imagination images of my mother, frail but smiling, suddenly replaced by the chilling idea of losing her. I needed strength, yet the more I thought of her, the more my resolve threatened to dissolve. When I finally reached her room, I stood frozen at the door, the intercom's beeping merging with the pounding drum of my heart. A nurse stepped outside, and I found the courage to ask, "Is she?" "She's stable for now, but she still needs close monitoring," the nurse replied, eyes softening at my evident fear. "You should go in. She would love to see you." And I took a deep breath and entered the room, where the sterile white sheets contrasted sharply with the pallor of her skin. My mother lay there, peaceful in her unconsciousness, but the beeping machines reminded me that this peace was fragile. "Mom," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I'm here. Please come back to me." Tears flowed freely now, and I wished fervently for any sign of her returning to me. I squeezed her hand, hoping my warmth would reach through the heavy barrier between us. These moments shifted as time seemed to stretch indefinitely, and suddenly a spark caught my eye. A clipboard resting on the bedside table bore a sticky note with a number scrawled hastily in my mother's delicate handwriting. It wasn't just a number, it was a name. Clara. Tension wrapped around me tighter, the sudden realization sinking in. Why would my mother have Clara's name? The knot in my stomach tightened, a new wave of uncertainty washing over me. Just then, it hit Meth's mysterious figure whose gaze had drawn me in earlier. Clara had been more than a friend. She had been my mother's confidant, too. The door creaked open, and I turned to see Clara stepping in. Her expression mirrored mine: shock, confusion, and something darker. She approached slowly, this time, the warmth we shared earlier dimmed by a wall of unspoken questions. "Your mother and I, we had unfinished business," Clara stammered, her voice barely audible. As the weight of the revelation settled between us, my heart raced anew. What had I stepped into? The journey was just beginning, more tangled than I ever imagined, and I was left on the precipice of another storm, a storm that threatened to unravel the very threads of my life once more. The tension in the room hung like a heavy fog, the air thick with the unsaid words that lingered between Clara and me. I felt as if the ground beneath me had shifted, leaving me teetering on the edge of confusion and betrayal. The warmth I'd read in Clara's eyes earlier felt distant now, replaced by a disquieting chill. "What do you mean, unfinished business?" I managed to ask, my voice barely breaking the silence, echoing off the sterile walls. My pulse quickened as I scanned Clara's face, searching for a hint of what this could possibly entail. Clara hesitated, her eyes darting to the floor before fixing back on me. "Years ago, your mother and I shared a bond that went deeper than friendship. We confided in each other about everything: our hopes, fears, and the struggles we faced as young women. But then life took us in different directions. I never meant to disappear from your lives. Why didn't I know any of this? My throat tightened as anger mingled with the confusion. You were such an important part of my childhood. I thought it was for the best, she replied, her voice trembling as she stepped closer. But your mother always spoke of you with such love and pride. When I heard about her condition, Clara took a deep breath, her resolve faltering. I came back, hoping to be of some support to both of you. I've never forgotten either of you. But why the secrecy? I challenged, my heart raging as feelings of betrayal clawed at me. What could you possibly have to discuss that had to stay hidden? Tears brimming in her eyes held a vulnerability I hadn't noticed before. Because it's complicated. There are things your mother told me that I'm not sure she wanted you to know, things about her past that haunt us both. A wave of nausea washed over me. The very notion that my mother had a secret life, one so intertwined with Clara's, felt like stepping off a cliff without knowing if I'd land safely. Part of me wanted to shut down, to turn my back on all of it, but another part sparked with an insatiable curiosity. And what could possibly be so damaging that she'd hide it from me? I whispered, my own voice trembling with fear. I can't divulge those details without her consent, Clara said, her voice low and solemn. But know this. She loves you fiercely, and whatever you find out, it doesn't change the way she feels about you. Before I could respond, a low beeping sound interrupted our conversation. I turned to find a nurse entering the room, her brow knit with concern. I'm sorry, visiting hours are almost over. You'll need to wrap up soon. Just give us a moment, I said, dismissing her, desperate to continue speaking with Clara. But time was no friend today. The sands of our conversation slipped through our fingers like water. Clara took a step back, her expression shifting from vulnerability to a serene acceptance. Please, Mariana. You need to talk to her. You need to tell her how you feel about everything. Just know that I am here for you, and I will support you however you need. It's time for both of us to face the truth, no matter how painful. With that, she turned away, leaving me standing on the brink of decision, feeling the weight of her words pressing down on me. But even heavier was the weight of uncertainty. I glanced back at my mother, still so fragile, and the anger bubbled inside me. What past secrets did Clara hold that were intertwined with my mother's love? I felt torn, like a rag doll pulled between two children. As Clara reached the door, she looked back one more time, her eyes glistening with emotion. You're stronger than you know. I promise to be there when you are ready. Wordlessly, I nodded, watching her leave me in the stark loneliness of the room, shadows of doubt swirling around me. Time seemed to drift aimlessly. The soft beeping of the monitors became a heartbeat of its own, reminding me that I had to confront the truth. Leaning closer to my mother, I took another deep breath and squeezed her hand. Mom, I'm here. I love you. Please wake up. We have so much to talk about. In that moment, a flicker of movement, a twitch of her fingers. Leaned closer, hope gripping my chest. A soft sigh escaped her lips. Mariana, she murmured, a whisper floating in the stillness. Mom, I exclaimed, holding my breath as her eyes fluttered slightly open. But the light within them was dim, almost lost in a fog I couldn't reach. I'm here. I'm right here. But just as quickly as hope bubbled up inside me, it was replaced by a new wave of fear. Mariana, she continued, but her voice trailed off, frail and shaky. My heart raced as I leaned closer, trying to decipher her words. Clara promised stay away. The words hit me like a cold slap, freezing my heart in my chest. What did she mean? What had Clara done? As her eyes slipped shut again, I was left to grapple with the reality I was deeper in this web than I had anticipated. And now a new fear simmered within me. I was not just battling my mother's fragile state. I also now had to discern truth from secrets, and with no answers in sight as night crept in and the hospital lights flickered overhead, I felt like a ship lost at sea, buffeted by tides I could not control. Would I uncover my mother's truth? And at what cost? Leaning back in my chair, I closed my eyes, the weight of revelation heavy on my heart, unaware that tomorrow would gift me a truth so monumental. It would challenge everything I thought I knew. The sterile scent of the hospital lingered in the air, heavy with the weight of sorrow and uncertainty. I sat in the dim light of the room, my heart racing as I replayed my mother's frail words in my mind. Clara promised stay away. The echoes of that whisper hung around me like a specter, twisting the feelings of love and betrayal that intertwined within my soul. I had thought the night would bring clarity, but with darkness descending outside, it seemed as though only more questions were taking form. My chair creaked softly as I shifted, the cold night settling into the hospital room like a lingering fog. The monitors beeped a steady rhythm, almost melodic compared to the chaos inside my mind. Clara had a past intertwined with my mother, one I had yet to discover. But what if uncovering the truth meant severing bonds I did not want to break? I needed to tread cautiously, balancing between the love I felt for my mother and the anger bubbling inside for the hidden truths that she had protected. As the hours crawled by, I glanced at the clock. Amidst my tumultuous thoughts, I barely registered the soft knock on the door. Turning, I was surprised to see an unfamiliar figure enter. A nurse, her smile warm but weary, stepped into the room holding a steaming mug. "I thought you might need some coffee," she said gently, placing it on the table beside me. "You've been here a while." Surprised at the unexpected kindness, I mustered a weak smile. "Thank you. I appreciate it." It felt small and insignificant compared to the weight I bore, but it was a moment of grace that tempered the sharp edges of my despair. She took a moment, glancing at my mother before her gaze returned to me. "It's tough in here, isn't it? I see so many families going through such difficult times. It doesn't matter how long you've been here. A moment of comfort can go a long way." Words hung heavy in the air, and I nodded, the hospitality of the nurse providing a brief sanctuary from my tempestuous thoughts. "It's complicated," I said, voice low. "I can only imagine. Just know that you're not alone. You have to lean on others when you need to. Family, friends, even your mother's old connections, they may reveal truths you never expected." Her voice was imbued with empathy, stirring something deep within me. I swallowed hard, feeling an unexpected lump in my throat. "Thank you for saying that. It's just hard to know who to trust. I thought I knew my mother, but this." I gestured vaguely toward her bed, the frail form inside the sheets. "This is just not what I expected. It's all been so overwhelming." The nurse nodded, her expression understanding. "Sometimes the truth reveals itself in the hardest moments. Just remember, whatever it is, it doesn't change the love she has for you. That will always be your anchor." With a soft smile, she turned to leave, but not before I caught a glimmer of something in her eyes. "Oh, and if you ever need to talk about anything, I'm just down the hall. We're all human here." I blinked in surprise, touched by her unexpected generosity. "Thank you. That means a lot," I murmured as she closed the door behind her. Taking a sip of the coffee, I let the warmth spread through me, a small comfort in this cold reality. I stared at my mother, battling the urge to shake her and scream, demanding to know what she meant about Clara. It felt unfair that she remained ensnared in her own darkness while I was left grasping at threads that might unravel the fabric of our lives. A noise broke the heavy silence, a faint rustling. I leaned closer, fixated on my mother's eyes fluttering open once again, a flicker of life breaking into the desolation. "Mariana?" she whispered, her voice thin and filled with fragility. "Yes. Oh my God, Mom. I'm right here." My heart raced. Could this be the moment I had been waiting for? "Can you tell me? What did Clara do? What do you want me to know?" Confusion shadowed her face, and I noticed the veins of fear etching deeper into her features. "Promise I never wanted to hurt you. Trust her or not." And with those last fragmented words, her eyes closed again, drifting back into the quiet of sleep, leaving me hanging on the precipice of revelation and despair. Each word felt like a thread of a tapestry, weaving in mysteries ghosting on the edges of my understanding. I rested my head against the side of her bed, tears pooling in my eyes as I fought the tempest within. I could sense a storm brewing, one that could sweep away everything I knew. Outside the clinical walls of our isolated world, the city thrummed with life, unaware of my struggle. I held on to the hope that clarity would shine through the fog, but instead, it seemed as if I had only plunged deeper into the shadows. As I sat there, clinging to my mother's hand, a gasp escaped her lips. I jerked back, but it was too late. Her sudden exclamation sent a shiver down my spine. "Stop asking. You shouldn't know." Chills radiated through me at her tone. It was sharp, fierce, filled with a wild protectiveness that stunned me into silence. What was happening? A part of me wanted to shake her awake, to drag her from the depths of her sleep and extract the words that danced just beyond my reach. But as she fell silent once again, a sinking dread settled in the pit of my stomach. What had I stumbled upon? In that moment, I knew I was caught in a dangerous web of truths that twisted tighter with every passing second. Tomorrow loomed with the promise of revelations I both yearned for and feared. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the verge of uncovering something that would change everything. And yet, a haunting question curled around my heart. At what cost? The day broke with a hesitant light filtering into the hospital room, a stark contrast to the relentless storm swirling within me. I moved in slow motion, each step weighed down by the remnants of my mother's alarming revelations. You shouldn't know. What did my mother mean? As I brushed away a stray tear, I wondered if ignorance truly was bliss after all. The nurse hadn't returned, and as the minutes dragged into hours, I found myself alone with memories threatening to drown me. Clara's name echoed in my thoughts. A foreign entity wrapped in layers of love, confusion, and a cautioning sense of betrayal. The world outside the sterile hospital doors buzzed with life. While I felt tethered to a reality tinged with uncertainty, I stared at my mother's sleeping form. The steady beeps of the monitor punctuated the silence, each sound a reminder that time was slipping away from us. I brushed my fingertips lightly against her hand, the warmth a cruel reminder of the chill that settled where my heart once felt secure. "Mom, please." I breathed into the stillness, desperate for any sign of clarity. It's what I needed, if only to dispel the deepening shadows encroaching on the edges of my mind. My thoughts swirled to the few flickers of kindness I had encountered, like the nurse's promise to listen, to sit in the chaos with me. Perhaps today, I could muster the courage to seek the answers hidden in the past. With a deep breath, I stood and walked towards the hallway, finding it a peculiar contrast to the turmoil within me. A sense of determination surged forward as I approached the nurse's station, seeking the mystery of Clara, despite the sorrow threatening to choke me as I reached the desk. I took a moment to collect my thoughts. The gentle hum of voices surrounded me, and I finally found the strength to speak. "Excuse me, I'm looking for someone who might know about my mother's past connections." "Someone named Clara?" I felt a tremor in my voice, the name laced with an urgency I couldn't shake. The receptionist smiled sympathetically, her brows furrowing slightly as she searched her computer. "I can look into our records for you, but please understand it might take some time." "Of course." I nodded, disappointment mingling with the last flickers of hope. But as I turned to head back to my mother's room, a figure caught my eye in the corner of the hallway, one I recognized from the previous evening. The nurse who had offered me coffee stood there, scribbling notes. She looked up, her face flickering with recognition. "Mariana, right?" she asked, her voice soothing despite the chaos surrounding us. I nodded, the weight of my worry spilling over. "Yes, I was just asking about Clara. I feel so lost trying to understand my mother's history, but no one seems willing to tell me anything. It's like I'm unraveling. Sometimes, it helps to share the burden," she said quietly, glancing at the nurses passing by. "Why don't we take a walk down to the cafeteria? I can tell you a little bit about the situation if you're ready." Her offer soothed the tension in my chest, and I willingly followed her. A sense of camaraderie brewed between us as we walked side by side, her gentle demeanor lighting a small flame of comfort within me. It's important to remember that connections can be both a blessing and a burden. Clara, she has a complicated history with your mother, one that might bring more questions than you already have. I inhaled sharply, sensing the weight of her words as we stepped into the faint bustle of the cafeteria. But why wouldn't she tell me? Why keep it hidden? The past is sometimes a harsh companion, Mariana. Your mother likely felt protecting you from it was the best choice. But uncovering truths can lead to healing if you're willing to embrace it, no matter how painful. The nurse's gaze held mine, her sincerity a comforting balm against my swirling doubts. As we sat down with steaming cups of coffee, I found myself gripping the mug tightly, desperate for answers. "What do you know about Clara?" Her eyes softened, as if weighing my anguish against her urge to share. "Clara was once very dear to your mother. They shared a life together before you came into the picture. It seems complicated, but their relationship was built on dreams that turned into heartache. Clara had to walk away to save herself, perhaps more than your mother would care to admit." Each word sunk deeper, echoing through me like thunder in a storm. But if she loved her, why wouldn't she want to see her again? Why not just tell me? Sometimes, people are afraid of what may come next. Distance can foster misunderstandings. Your mother may fear that knowing about Clara might change your perception of her. I felt the walls around my heart shattering, revealing vulnerable cracks. But it feels like a betrayal. Why not just be honest with me? Desperation laced my voice, but the nurse's presence anchored me, preventing the rawness from spilling over entirely as we sat quietly, nursing our coffee. I realized that for every shadow creeping into my relationship with my mother, there were kind souls like the nurse showing up at unexpected places, a reminder that hope existed even when dark clouds loomed overhead. But could I share this renewed sense of resolve with my mother when the next moment arrived? When I finally returned to the room, I found it eerily quiet, the rhythmic beeping of the monitor harmonizing with my racing heart. Suddenly, everything felt heavy again, the weight of my mother's hidden truths pressing down on me. I took a deep breath, prepared to navigate the storm. However, as I stepped closer, an unsettling sight froze me in place. My mother's eyes were wide open, determination etched across her face, an expression I had never seen before, as though the weak spirit had suddenly transformed into something fierce and unyielding. "Mariana," she gasped, voice stronger than before. I rushed to her side, my heart in knots. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Clara, she's coming. You need to choose your side," she whispered, fear laced in her tone. "And I can't guarantee it will end well." With those words, the air thickened, enveloping me in dread. This journey was spiraling beyond our control, and suddenly the burden of choice rested heavily upon my shoulders. The fluorescent lights flickered above us, casting a sterile glow that did little to soothe the whirlwind of emotions swirling in my chest. The hospital room, once a sanctuary, felt like a cage as I absorbed my mother's warning. "You need to choose your side." The words echoed in the silence, resonating with an energy that set my heart racing. "Mom, what do you mean?" My voice trembled, each syllable layered with confusion and urgency. I searched her eyes for clarity, but all I found were shadows of unspoken fears. Clara was a stranger to me, a name etched in the corners of my mind. But suddenly she was a looming specter, entwined with my mother's past, fraught with drama I couldn't comprehend. "I didn't want to bring this into your life," she gasped, struggling to catch her breath. "Clara is complicated, and our story, it's messy. I didn't want you to inherit my burdens." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently, hoping to anchor her. "But I need to understand, Mom. If she's coming, then I have to know the truth about everything between you two." A surge of determination coursed through me, fueled by a mix of fear and defiance. I would not shy away from learning the darkest facets of our family history. "I should have told you," she murmured, her voice growing fainter. "But the past isn't easy, and some truths can change everything." A churning unease tightened its grip on my throat. "What do you mean, change everything?" But just then, a sharp knock interrupted us, and the nurse who had so kindly shared bits of knowledge earlier entered the room. Her expression shifted from concern to unease as she assessed the atmosphere. "Everything all right?" I gestured to my mother, feeling a surge of protectiveness. "Mom, justice, it true what they say about Clara?" The question slipped through my lips before I could stop it, my heart racing with the idea that my mother's past was about to spill into a present I wasn't prepared for. The nurse hesitated, her gaze flickering to my mother, who now appeared lost in thought, casting her eyes toward the window, seemingly lost in the thoughts of years gone by. "The truth is never straightforward," she finally replied, her voice gentle but firm. "But if Clara has decided to return, Then your mother must confront her past or risk the consequences. I felt a pang of betrayal as these words sank in. The unyielding reality became clear. My mother had a life before me, one intricately woven with the threads of this mysterious Clara, and it might unravel everything I thought I knew about her. Yet, I was not ready to abandon the hope that perhaps these truths could eventually bring us closer together if only we could make it through the storm that threatened to engulf us. Mom, look at me, I urged, bringing her attention back to our moment. We can face this together, but you need to tell me everything. I want to understand you, all the parts that have made you who you are. If Clara is coming, then maybe she's here to bridge the gaps, not break us. Her expression shifted, a flicker of vulnerability weaving through her steely resolve. You may wish that, dear, but her presence brings with it storms long settled. I turned to the nurse, seeking support. What can I do? How can I be prepared for whatever is coming? There's nothing wrong with wanting to know, she reassured me, silencing the irate voice in my head that warned me to tread lightly. But hope comes woven into the fabric of our lives, sometimes clashing with the painful truths that unravel around us. Clara may bring turmoil, but she may also reveal pieces of your mother that you haven't seen before. With her words hanging heavy in the air, the monitors beeping pulsed in rhythm with the chaos in my heart. I felt as if we were standing on the precipice of an emotional cliff, our fragile balance dependent on the choices we might soon have to face. And then, as if in response to the growing tension, the door swung open. A woman stood silhouetted against the harsh fluorescent light, the air stirred with a tension that sent electric jolts through me. She had an unmistakable presence, confident and poised, with an intense gaze that swept over both my mother and me before settling into a piercing stare. Is this where I find you, Laura? The voice was smooth, unyielding, and it cut through the dense atmosphere like a blade. Clara had arrived, bringing with her the promise of revelations that might seize the very foundation of my family. Clara, the whisper escaped my mother's lips, a mixture of fear, regret, and an undeniable longing. In that moment, my stomach knotted, and I realized I was standing at the edge of an abyss, one that mirrored the storm within me, poised to either pull us apart or lead us toward a bridge of understanding. My heart raced with anticipation, but uncertainty clouded my vision. What would unravel from this intersection of past and present? As Clara stepped further into the room, each gesture felt charged with significance, a prelude to truths that could illuminate the darkness or shatter the fragile connections gripping our lives. I felt trapped between conflicting desires, to shield my mother from pain or to dive headfirst into the chaos, seeking every answer. The resolution lay on the horizon, but the storm was far from over. The air turned thick with a mixture of dread and anticipation as Clara crossed the threshold, her presence inundating the sterile room with a warmth that felt foreign, even menacing. I could see the memories flooding back into my mother's eyes, a cascade of emotions that sparked deep-rooted fears. I felt like an outsider, tethered to a drama I had only recently discovered the contours of. Why now? My mother's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. Didn't you say you would leave the past behind? Clara took a measured step closer, her expression unreadable. I returned because I heard you were unwell, Laura. I couldn't just ignore my past or yours. Her gaze shifted to me, assessing, and something about it felt invasive. Mom, is she really a part of our past? I asked, desperate for clarity, my heart a drum in my chest, echoing the uncharted territory we were now edging into. Yes, Clara responded, with a weight that reverberated in the air. Though you have your mother's strength, I sense you draw more from her past than you realize. What does that mean? I demanded, though anger surged through me more than curiosity. Don't. My mother interjected, trying to shield me from further conflict. Don't bring her into this. The tension was palpable, and I felt as though I was caught in a riptide. Every word dragged me further into turbulent waters. But my need to understand was fiercer than my desire to retreat. I want to hear her, I said, my voice steadying with newfound resolve. Do you? Though? Clara's smile exuded a haunting beauty that masked a blade hidden beneath soft curves. You say you want to understand, But what if some truths are unbearable? Then he'll have to bear them, I replied, my heart racing. I'm tired of shrouded truths. I want to know the whole story, even if it shatters everything. Is that what you really want, sweetheart? My mother asked, her eyes wide with concern. To delve into the past that could so easily break us? What if Clara isn't the answer to our pain? I can't fear the past if it holds pieces of you that I've yet to understand, I countered, my voice trembling but resolute. If you shut Clara out, how will we ever know? Such innocence, Clara commented with a slight laugh, but beneath it lay a layer of darkness. Your bravery is refreshing. But do keep in mind that with every truth comes a consequence. Just then, the nurse re-entered, her presence a welcome distraction. I know things are intense right now, but I think we need to find some focus here. Perhaps it would help to have this discussion away from the high-stress hospital environment. Oh, right, because that makes everything better, Clara mused, rolling her eyes. Just like sweeping dirt under a rug won't make it disappear. The corridors aren't the answer, Clara, my mother said, the sharpness returning to her voice, but I could see within her a tremor of uncertainty. It's not just about us now. It's about her, your daughter. Then let her decide. Clara turned to me, and in that moment, I understood the underlying challenge she was presenting. You can hold the weight of these truths, can't you? Or do you fear the history that writhes beneath the surface? I don't fear it, I replied fiercely, my blood boiling. But I refuse to let it crush us. There must be something salvageable in it. As Clara's gaze intensified, I realized she possessed an understanding of power and darkness that I had yet to grapple with. The reverberations of her words sunk into me like a seed, sprouting the beginnings of doubt. What if Clara was right? What if I stumbled unintentionally into a realm where knowing too much could cost us everything? As the nurse looked on, caught in the standoff, I felt as though this single moment could determine the course of my family's future. All right, my mother exhaled, finally succumbing to the weight of our shared command. Let's talk. But not here. We need somewhere private. Somewhere no one can listen. With that, we stepped into the hallway. I caught a glimpse of sunlight peeking through a window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. It was a small hope, a reminder that light persisted even in the shadows of uncertainty we now faced. But as we moved further away from the sanctuary of the hospital room, a shift in the atmosphere began to brew. I could feel Clara's eyes on my mother, scrutinizing her, peeling back layers of the past like the skin of an onion, exposing vulnerabilities that I feared might choke us all. And just then, an alarming shriek broke through the stillness, echoing down the hall. My heart raced as I turned to see a medical team rushing past, headed towards a room not far from us. The noise pulled us from our moment, a stark reminder of the fragility of life around us. Stay here, my mother instructed, her voice laced with authority as she moved to follow. But just then, Clara grabbed my arm, halting me. Wait, she said earnestly, her voice low enough for only me to hear. What? She leaned in, glancing back at my mother who was now lost in the chaos. I know something you don't. The truth of the past is set to collide with your present. And when it does, I can help you navigate it. Or crush it. I countered, but doubt lodged itself in my throat. Or light the way, Clara replied, a flicker of softness in her eyes, before her expression hardened once more. You just need to choose wisely. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed down the corridor, and my mother suddenly appeared, her face pale and her breath hitching. They can't find him. He's missing, she whispered, the words dropping like stones into an already turbulent sea. Who? I nearly shouted, panic bubbling up within me. But just as I sought to dive deeper, a figure stepped onto the scene, someone I had never expected to see here. Someone whose presence had the power to tilt our fragile balance altogether. My heart lurched. The past was not just a whispered name. It was here, looming, ready to break us apart or to mend the gaps. As my mother's expression shifted to one of shock, I followed her gaze and gasped. The corridor felt alive with chaos, its sterile walls echoing the frantic footsteps of hospital staff and the muffled cries of families caught in fear and uncertainty. As I followed my mother's gaze, My mind struggled to align what was happening with the fragmented pieces of my understanding of our family's history. Standing at the far end of the hallway, bathed in the cold luminescence of fluorescent lights, was a tall figure I recognized all too well. He was a ghost from my mother's past, a man whose name I barely understood, yet one who had long cast a shadow over our lives. "Daniel," my mother whispered, her voice cracking as though the word had weight enough to shatter her. I felt Clara's grip tighten on my arm, the warmth quickly turning clammy, sending a shiver racing down my spine. "This may not be the moment you dreamed of, but here we are," she said, her tone laced with an unsettling mix of sympathy and intrigue. "Who is he?" I demanded, my heart pounding. "What does he want?" Mom walked toward him as if pulled by an invisible thread, her face a mask of disbelief and hope twisted into dread. "You shouldn't be here," she stammered, her voice quaking. "Not now, not like this." What was it about this man that stirred so much within her? I had always envisioned the past as a closed book, one my mother chose to ignore rather than confront. Yet here it was, flung open wide, the pages rustling in the wind with everything we had feared could return. "That he came to check on you, Laura. You're not well," Daniel said, his voice smooth like honey but coated with a bitterness that hinted at years of unresolved emotions. "I heard the news. I had to come." "You had no right to come," she snapped, each word bitter and sharp, but I could see the cracks beginning to form in her resolve. Tension coiled around us, squeezing tighter with the uncertainty of what Daniel's presence meant. I watched as they exchanged glances. A web of unspoken words and buried feelings sparkled dangerously in the air. "This isn't about you anymore. It's about her." Clara's voice broke through the haze, pulling my attention away from their tumultuous exchange. "Clara, this isn't your moment to dictate," Daniel sneered, his eyes flickering towards her before turning back to my mother. "Maybe your daughter should know who I am. I have a right to explain myself." "Enough," I interjected, my voice trembling slightly, tinged with authority I didn't fully feel. "I don't want any more lies or half-truths. I need to know who you are and why your presence feels like a storm building in the distance." Clara released my arm and stepped away, instinctively giving me space, a look of approval gracing her lips that surprised me. Maybe she saw something in me, a flicker of resolve that burned brighter in the face of uncertainty. "He's right," Clara murmured softly, almost to herself. "There are truths waiting to be unearthed, but each has its weight. Just breathe, sweetheart," my mother urged, her eyes now glistening, unsure whether to embrace the moment or retreat into safety. "Daniel is not a villain of our story. He carries history that shaped our family, but it's not yours to bear. Is that true? Is he part of the story?" I felt the words exit my mouth before I could cage them, the sound bouncing helplessly around us. "He's a memory." My mother's voice was a whisper, but the reality behind it roared like a tempest. "He's everything I ran from." But the heaviness in her spirit seemed to linger in the air, almost tangible, binding us in a collective discontent that had festered for years. I could see her heartstrings taut with conflicting loyalties, years of protecting me standing at odds with the undeniable truth that this man held a fragment of our history. "Then let's hear the truth," I declared, my back straightening as I stepped toward Daniel, the man my mother had feared, the man who could tilt the balance of my entire understanding of who I was. "Tell me everything. Don't you dare sweep this under the rug." A moment of silence enveloped us, the chaos of the hospital fading into the backdrop. The look on Daniel's face was indecipherable, a mixture of surprise and admiration, as if my words shook him more than they shook me. "You're braver than I expected, but bravery comes with consequences," he warned gently. Yet there was something in his tone that hinted at knowledge I could hardly comprehend, with my mother's eyes searching mine for guidance. A subtle spark lit within me, urging me to push forward despite the fear clawing at my gut. "I expect honesty, whatever the cost," I replied, my determination unwavering as he stepped closer. The weight of his past started infiltrating our moment. But just as he opened his mouth to speak, the shriek of an alarm echoed down the corridor, a siren of chaos swarming around us once more. The moment stuttered forward, the air thickening, misaligned, and ripe with tension that felt almost palpable. "What did you do?" My mother's voice shrieked. Panic etched across her features. I turned to Daniel, appeared unbothered, his expression blank, and I realized that whatever truth he held could herald a danger we hadn't anticipated. In the distance, the sound of hurried footsteps approached, shadows darting around the corner, wrapping the air in unease. And then, as if orchestrated by fate, Daniel's gaze met mine, and in that instant, I knew I stood at the precipice of revelation, a truth brimming with urgency, threatening to unravel everything. As chaos swirled around us, I felt my heart race, knowing that the revelations of the past were about to collide with our present, and what lay ahead could shatter the fragile peace we had built between us. I felt the air shrink, squeezing the life out of the moment. The alarm blared, a relentless reminder that time was slipping away from us, and with it, our chance for clarity. Daniel's calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to my mother's rising panic. "We need to get out of here," she whispered, her eyes darting to the end of the corridor where figures in scrubs rushed past, their faces set with urgency. "Oh," I said firmly, shaking my head. "I want run from this." I faced Daniel, the intensity in my gaze matched only by the whirlwind of questions swirling in my mind. "You said I deserve the truth. Then give it to me." He hesitated, the battle within him evident. But as the alarm's wail pierced through the chaos, the remaining composure in his posture began to crack. "Laura, your life is about to change," Clara interjected, stepping closer, her concern evident. "She's not ready to hear certain things." "Stop shielding me," I shouted, surprising even myself with the ferocity of my words. The familiar scent of antiseptic in the air felt heavy in my lungs, each breath a struggle against the weight of family secrets. I turned my focus back to Daniel, determination boiling inside me. "Do you think hiding it will make it go away? This is the moment we must face it all, whether we're ready or not." My mother reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly as if her grip could hold back the tide of revelations. But I pulled away, spurred on by the ardor rising within me. "Tell me who you are," I demanded again, my heart pounding in my ears. "Tell me what you mean to her, to us." Daniel exhaled a shaky breath. "I didn't come to hurt you. I came because," he faltered, and I thought for a fleeting moment that vulnerability might seep through his carefully crafted facade. "Because I've made mistakes that can't be mended without the truth being known." The tension in my mother's expression tightened further. "Daniel, please." But the clock was ticking. Every second felt like an eternity, and I could sense something pivotal about to unfold. "You owe it to me to speak." I pressed on, desperation bleeding into my voice. "There's tension built from silence for too long. Whatever it is, lay it bare. I can handle it." Before he could respond, a group of nurses rounded the corner, their faces painted with the urgency of their tasks. More alarms went off behind me, adding to the overwhelming sensation of scrambling chaos that engulfed us. It became clear that whatever was happening needed immediate attention, and I could almost feel the urgency in the air, that unmistakable shift towards impending change as they hurried past us. One nurse stopped, her eyes landing on Clara and me. "We need to evacuate this floor. The situation is escalating, and everyone needs to head to the waiting area immediately." "See? We can't do this here," my mother urged, pulling on my arm as Clara moved to guide me away. "We'll talk later. It's not safe." But the thought of being whisked away from this moment felt like an anchor weighing me down. I took a reluctant step back towards Daniel, who was now visibly torn. "What are you not telling me?" I challenged, searching for any flicker of truth behind the storm brewing in his gaze. "I can't do this here, Laura." His voice was strained, the weight of his words palpable, pressing like a hand on my chest. "Then when?" I challenged, a fuse of anger and sorrow igniting inside me. "Now is our only moment. I don't care if it feels wrong. I need to understand." Daniel's brows knitted together, and for an instant, I thought he might reveal the catharsis I so desperately craved. "When I walked away from this family, I thought I was protecting you both. But hiding the truth didn't spare you from the fallout. It did the opposite," he admitted, and my heart leaped at his honesty. "But the danger is still here, and you need to be careful. I'm trying to keep you safe." Suddenly, the shrieks of panic grew louder, an urgency unfurling around us like the relentless sound of sirens. I turned to see shadows flickering in the corridor, dark figures taking shape, shadowed by the harsh fluorescent lights. There, footsteps hurried and desperate. "Daniel, what danger? What's coming?" I pressed, sensing an ominous shift off the corner of my instincts. And then, just as all the color seemed to drain from the scene, a familiar face loomed in the doorway. The last person I expected to see. My father. His presence sent an electric shock through the air, reverberating in my chest like a drumroll heralding an impending storm. "Laura!" he shouted, rushing forward, his eyes wide with fear and urgency. The world around me collapsed for a fleeting moment, the tension in my heart swirling with disbelief. Here stood the man I had so longed to understand, yet waiting for him felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering towards an inevitable plunge. "Dad?" My voice shook. A small whimper caught in my throat as reality settled into the marrow of my bones. "What are you doing here?" But as I searched his face for answers, more questions brewed behind my eyes, and the hope I clung to felt painfully fragile amid the chaos encircling us. And when I glanced back at Daniel, I saw a shroud of apprehension that twisted with anticipation, hinting that the family web we were entangled in was now irrevocably stretched taut. Nothing was as it seemed in this world anymore. The truth lurked just out of reach, and every passing second chipped away at the facade that would finally expose the shifting ground upon which our lives rested. The storm was here, and I knew the next decisions we'd make would change everything. I stood at the crossroads of my life, enveloped in the tumult of emotions that erupted within me. The hospital corridor pulsed with a chaotic energy, merging the fear of the past with the uncertainty of a future I could no longer ignore. My father, a specter of years gone by, stood before me, grasping the fabric of our shared history that loomed larger with every heartbeat. My mother's whispered warnings echoed relentlessly in my mind. "You need to choose your side." Yet standing here, surrounded by the faces of the people I loved, I felt both emboldened and weakened. "Dad," I breathed, the word a lifeline that tethered me to the child I once was, the daughter who lost so much to the shadows of secrets. "Why are you here? What's happening?" He stepped closer, his gaze shifting between me and my mother, the years etched into his expression like weathered lines of a story never fully told. "Laura, we need to talk." His voice trembled, resolving into a plea, a desperate urgency that cut through the noise. "Talk about what?" I asked, my heart racing, a storm of anticipation and trepidation swirling within. "What are we keeping from each other?" "Everything," Daniel interjected, his tone sharp. "You're standing in the middle of a dangerous web spun from choices we made long before you were born. And I shouldn't have come?" My father interrupted, the heat leaping into his words. "Is that really what you think? You knew this day would come. She deserves to know who she is." "Truth can be a double-edged sword," Daniel replied, each word heavy with a weight I was desperate to lift. "Are you prepared to bear the consequences of what's to come? Or are you merely playing with flames?" "I'm not afraid of the truth," I exclaimed, my voice strong and unwavering. "Whatever it is, whatever danger lies ahead, I need to know. I deserve that much." The air crackled with tension as their arguments became a storm, and in that tempest, I struggled to find my own footing. "Enough," my mother finally shouted, her voice slicing through the discord. "We cannot unravel everything here. We need a safe place to talk. A space where our fears can be confronted without judgment." But the moment felt charged with a tangible intensity, a stillness amplifying the unvoiced connections that had long tethered us together. My father's presence in the room buzzed with familiarity and estrangement. All these years of searching for his figure now collided with the reality of his arrival. "I can't just run away anymore," I said, attempting to quell the panic bubbling beneath the surface. "If there's danger and if there's truth to be found, how can we face it without confronting the source?" Each word pushed me deeper into the pit of uncertainty, the entwining shadows of our past. Daniel and Clara exchanged fleeting glances, concern painted across their faces, as if they understood the mausoleum of reckoning we had yet to face. Then came the sound of distant footsteps echoing in the hallway, a reminder that time was no longer on our side. The tension morphing into something thick yet fragile, the promise of confrontation layered with the fear of disillusionment. "We can move to the waiting area," my mother suggested, her resilience tying us together in a moment of sudden clarity. "There are fewer ears, and we can lay our cards on the table." I nodded, feeling the collective weight of their eyes analyzing me, like different sides of a coin, each grasping for understanding while simultaneously fearing what that understanding might reveal. The truth was a boundless ocean, and we were about to dive into its depths, typecasting ourselves like the flawed heroes or villains we feared. And so we moved, a unit tethered by invisible strings flickering in the chaotic winds. The waiting area was filled with families' faces of anguish, uncertainty, and hope. The air felt charged with tender moments shared and whispers of despair. We found a secluded corner, wedged between informed silence and the restless pulse of life beyond the room. "Now begin before the storm reaches us," I urged, desperation and determination interwoven in the fabric of my voice. Clara shifted slightly, her eyes darting nervously as if she were on the edge of laden revelations, ready to encapsulate the enormity of our shared humanity. "Laura," Daniel said, his voice deep and resonant, drawing me in, "your mother and I share a history that shaped our lives in ways you can't fully comprehend. I was once a part of your life, a part that haunts her still." "Part of her life?" I repeated, caught between disbelief and fear. "You were the reason she ran?" "Not just a reason," he murmured, his eyes softening with recollection. "I made choices that crossed lines, ones she never wanted you to bear. My absence was meant to protect you both from the consequences of those decisions. If you left, it wasn't for me," I replied, my heart flaring with anger. "You abandoned her, and by prolonging your silence, you abandoned me. That's not protection. That's cowardice." "Mariana," my mother interjected, her tender voice quaking with respect, "please know that I chose to shield you from him, not because of fear, but love. But the truth, it carries the weight of responsibility. Choices were made that cast shadows over your existence." "What shadows?" I pressed, my pulse roiling as painful fragments fell into place, the pieces intertwining. "Is he a villain in our story, or does he get a redemption arc?" Daniel's expression flickered, caught somewhere between remorse and yearning. "He is part of the story because I chose to walk away when I felt the festers of old sins rising. I never wanted you to suffer for choices I made in my youth." "Laura, in your youth?" My mother's voice was firm, breathing defiance into the air. "You made choices that changed everything, not just for me, but for everyone. And now look at us, entangled in this mess because we refused to face the truth head-on." Tears welled in my eyes as the dam of suppressed emotions shattered in that moment, leaving vulnerability streaming to the surface. "I want to know every detail. The foundation of our existence, what if it's built on lies?" I felt the gravity of our collective silence, the air thickening once more as uncertainties hovered in the corners. This was no small truth. It was a whirlwind of complexities, layering the bonds of blood, love, betrayal, and forgiveness upon one another. "Laura," Daniel said, stepping closer, his eyes earnest and raw, "Clara and I once loved one another, an innocent bond that turned complicated. It wasn't simply love. It was a desperation to escape life's bitter chains. Our shared history could be the very clue needed to break the cycle." It crashed into the silence like a tidal wave, drowning out unspoken fears. "Clara," I turned to her, my heart racing. "You had a connection with my mother?" Her eyes widened, her breath catching momentarily. "Yes," she confessed, the air thickening with uncharted emotions. "We were friends, lovers even, but I made choices, two choices that cost us time." The shattering of my childhood perception felt like shards of glass spearing through my chest. "You both ran from love?" I whispered, as pieces began to coalesce. Did the love they once shared twist into fear? Did the time move on and separate them, not just physically but emotionally too? I thought leaving would spare us pain, Clara said, her voice trembling slightly. Little did either of us know that secrecy would be the real danger. Your mother has lived in that shadow all along. But at what cost? I yelled, desperate to capture their attention. The weight of their histories pushing down upon my heart. How can I trust either of you when the truth keeps shifting between us? Because, sweetheart, my father interjected gently, you are the light that shines through this storm. You are the truth we've all needed to embrace. With you stands the power to choose forgiveness over despair. I took a shaky breath, feeling the tears slip down my cheeks. This was precisely the moment where everything merged, the hope and despair, clarity and chaos. Maybe we aren't here to patch up old wounds, I said softly, but to change the narrative. As I glanced between the three of them, something profound transformed within me. Maybe the truth, no matter how painful, could be the bridge toward understanding and healing. I was tired of turning away from the tempest. I needed to turn toward it. Let's speak the truth, I urged. Resolve rekindled within me. Whatever history brings us here today, we need to reconcile it. Together. But just then, another alarm echoed through the halls, louder and more urgent than before, cutting through my burgeoning hope. The chaos surged anew, a reminder that those who walked in shadows were lurking, ready to impose their presence upon the fraying strands of my family. In that moment, the enormity of what lay ahead crashed over me. Not just the burden of deeper truths, but the weight of impending choices that could tip our fragile balance. Now is not the moment for indecision, my mother declared, the fire of her spirit igniting. Let's gather what strength we have and face the coming storm together. With those words echoing in the air, surrounded by the flickering forms of my family, each one a lifeline, intertwined in this tapestry of love and chaos, I felt embers of courage burgeon. I was ready to face the truth, to fight for our bond, no matter where the tempest might take us. As the alarms blared around us, signaling the urgency that surrounded our lives, I turned to Daniel, Clara, and my mother, holding tightly to the threads of hope. We could weave them anew, creating a tapestry colored by resilience, and at its center, I would be the force, the storm that would navigate us through the darkness. Together, we can weather this, I said, my voice steady, simmering with unexplored courage and love. Together we can begin again. And as the darkness drew closer, I felt a tiny flicker of light ignite within, a hope that surged forth to illuminate the unknown, a beginning woven from our shared history and a future ripe for reclamation. It was time to embrace both the storm and the calm, with a heart open to the healing path we were destined to walk. And in that acceptance, I knew we could rise from these ashes, reborn. Let's choose to rewrite our story, I whispered, capturing the solemnity of the moment, a clarity solidifying in my heart as we braced ourselves for the inevitable storm. In that collective breath, I dared to dream that with love and truth, we could emerge into the light. And with gravity in my heart, I made my commitment, sealing it with one final whispered thought, resonating deep into the silence that wrapped around us. From darkness, we shall rise, together.